You go, man, it's a cleaning business. There's a ton of cleaning business. No. Nobody cleans like I clean. So their mindset is they're different. But there is no, they've created no market-based differentiation. It's not just that, that's the cornerstone. But let's look at these other issues. It's a labor-intensive business, right? If it's labor-intensive, what does that tell you? It tells you that their capacity is limited. They don't have a lot of machinery, they're not using technology, it's dependent on their labor, so their capacity is limited. I can only clean, at a good day, 5 homes, right? Meaning, in a good week, if I'm at capacity, I'm doing 25 customers, right? And I make, in profit, $50 per customer. Well, you can do the numbers. You can start to see the problem there. So their volume capacity is limited, and it's not limited because of market demand as much as because of their capability. Now, if my volumes are limited and I have no cash flow to speak of, that means I buy in very small quantities. If I'm buying in small quantities, I can't buy at wholesale. So I end up having to buy at retail to turn around and sell something at retail, and the margin's been squeezed out. Meanwhile, so my unit cost, because I don't have the equipment and I don't have the technology, my unit cost is relatively higher, but I lowball price because I think I have to compete on price. And they often don't understand that there is no advantage from having the lowest price. That lowball in price just sets you up for somebody to undercut you on price, and then you, and so forth. So they have no bargaining power with suppliers or with customers. And if they're doing anything differently, 5 people have copied them and entered the market in the last 2 months. So you start to put this whole picture together, and you end up with a business with low volumes and low margins that is undifferentiated in the marketplace and can't break out. The reason you're here is to address the commodity trap. And that's a big challenge. It's to find the profit that's in this, whether that's in a niche or that's angling this a little more this way or that way. But this is a core precept in terms of all the work that we do. The other issue is, let's talk about the money thing. So everybody begins and ends any conversation about poverty and entrepreneurship with money. I think you got to get past that. That's what I tell the entrepreneurs. Do you know that the average business in the United States, I mean, we have a lot of crazy myths in entrepreneurship. You ever been in a room and somebody stood up here in front and said, you know, 98% of startups fail? You ever heard that kind of thing? It's utter bullshit. You know what the failure rate of businesses in the United States? 44%. 44%. And it varies by industry. So there are industries that are 15, 20%. And, you know, if you're starting a restaurant, well, probably a little higher failure rate. But the challenge is that the average business in America is started with $500. The typical business in America is started with no bank financing. I'm not talking about later on do they get bank financing. I'm talking about when they start. They don't qualify for bank. Just the poor. I'm talking about all startups. and they certainly don't attract equity in investment. So the issue is not that we need to, it is not that we don't need to find a pathway to finance for these businesses. It's that we can't use that as the cop-out for not making progress. You know, so we spend a lot of time on the entrepreneurial mindset, right? And the entrepreneurial mindset is about what? Thinking different. Seeing resources where other people don't see resources. And this is again where the mentoring becomes critical. Because if you basically say, well, you need a truck, and you need to buy a truck, and if you get a used truck, you still need to spend $30,000 on a truck. Until you get a truck, there's no business. Well, that's a circuitous conversation that's going to lead to no business ever getting started. So the issue is, how do you get a truck without buying a truck? So we had a guy who is a caterer. He's quite good, but he makes the mistake, of course, because he's trying to formalize his business. So he makes the mistake of calling the city and saying, well, I got this restaurant, this catering business, I need a food license. And they say, oh, okay, great, we're happy to help you. We'll send an inspector out. Of course, the inspector comes out, and this guy's working from home, and he can't isn't allowed to work from home in South Bend if you're doing food, and so he's put out of business. Which he kept doing it, but the point is, he can no longer run his business from his own home kitchen. So in South Bend, we don't have food incubators or some low-cost place, shared kitchen facility he can use. But that's just opening a door. So what closing one door and opening another. So who has kitchens? Schools have kitchens that they only use a couple hours a day for so many months of the year, right? So do a lot of churches, it turns out. And so this guy now is using a church kitchen for 5 days a week when they're not using the kitchen, and that's where he runs his business. And that's not an ideal solution, but it's progress. And so now he's launched a junior chef program in 3 of the schools in South Bend, and his junior chef program creates a vehicle for him to cook in the schools and use their kitchen. So the upshot is, how do you think more about leveraging resources and guerrilla thinking and this entrepreneurial mindset as a way of thinking and a way of acting? And this is, you can't just assume this. This has to be nurtured and developed. And as mentors, this is again part of your role, is to help start to, so you know, I spent a lot of time trying to get these entrepreneurs to realize everything around you is a resource. Every person around you is a resource, but everything is around you is a resource. So I love to tell the story of the guy who's starting a restaurant. He has no money for marketing, so he has a party for hairdressers. Every hairdresser in the town's invited to a free party at his restaurant right before the grand opening. Well, what do hairdressers do all day?
Talk to their clients.
Yeah, he's got 6 months, $150,000, $200,000 of free promotion from all these hairdressers for his restaurant. But do you look at hairdressers as a marketing channel? Starting to see these, putting on a different pair of eyeglasses in terms of how you look at Milwaukee, in terms of all these tables, bathroom doors, all these things I could leverage, existing vehicles or what have you, to make it happen. So I think it's important that as mentors, you believe in their dream. Even, I mean, the natural tendency, you know, is to be a critic and to spot the flaws, to here's why it won't work. You just have to bite your tongue on that and instead find the reasons. Here's the way we'll get it somewhere where it may work. Here's how we'll adapt it and change. As all of you probably know, the evidence is overwhelming that if you look at the most successful entrepreneurs, I guarantee you, regardless of what he says, Bezos had no idea that Amazon would look like it looks today when he started that business. That's the norm in entrepreneurship. What gets created is always radically different than what the original concept was. So that adaptation that has to happen, rather than criticism or, yeah, your idea is okay, but why don't you look at this different idea I've come up with for you? You know, that's the other thing that doesn't work well with this program. We have folks that contact us and say, hey, I got this business idea, but does anybody in your program want to take and run with it? That doesn't work. I mean, it can work, but it rarely works. Because it starts with passion and having a belief in what I'm trying to do and other people believing in my dream. Building their self-confidence, building their self-efficacy, their sense that they can do this, that they have it in them. You know, anybody who walks in and tells you that entrepreneurs are born is fooling themselves. The most researched question in the field of entrepreneurship is, who is the entrepreneur? 40 years of research on the psychology and the sociology of people who pursue entrepreneurship. And after all that time, what have we learned? Entrepreneurs are more different than they are similar. There is no checklist of success factors. I mean, it helps to have some passion, helps to have a work ethic, but so anybody can start a business. Not anybody can build Virgin or, you know, Facebook, but that self-efficacy, helping them with business literacy and obviously helping solve problems. So where do you start? I would encourage that you organize your thinking around 3 pathways. The personal development of the person, what can I do there? You know, one of the things that I find most lacking in many of the folks that we've worked with over the years is they tend to, you know, that lady that makes bibs, that person who loves to make cakes, the person who cuts hair, they're very product focused. They love to bake, right? They hate to sell. And so one of the biggest things you can do is nurturing that mindset of, you got to sell every day. You get an elevator, start selling. You know, and creating that comfort zone. So the idea of, well, how do I take my baby bibs and go into the store and sell the store on carrying them in the store is that's almost as big a mental block as writing a business plan. You know, and so whether that's helping understand the importance of the numbers and what the numbers can tell you about your business, whether that's discipline. You know, we have a woman in the program who sells. She makes lip gloss, right? Lip gloss, yeah. And she sells. She makes the lip gloss, but she also sells eyelashes. And she's got a little machine and she can do screen printing on t-shirts. Her mindset is, I need money from as many places as I can get it. Rather than the discipline of, forget these other things, the best opportunity here is probably the lip glosses. How do we grow this lip gloss business and stop you being distracted by these other things you think, well, it's kind of like well, I hedge my bets and have as many revenue sources as I can. So, personal development, the business model itself, and the key issues here tend to be almost all these entrepreneurs, when you ask them the question, who's your market, will tell you everybody's a potential customer, which is like saying nobody.